This program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with Eau Claire County. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to call this meeting of the Eau Claire County Board of Supervisors to order here on July 18, 2017. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of reflection by Supervisor David Mortimer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The reflection for this evening comes from a middle school commencement address by Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, who is speaking because his son was one of the graduates. And this is just a small paragraph that I thought was particularly memorable. And it was a middle school graduation with a group of kids and parents, and this is what he said. From time to time in the years to come, I hope you will be treated unfairly, so that you will come to know the value of justice. I hope that you will suffer betrayal, because that will teach you the importance of loyalty. Sorry to say, but I hope you will be lonely from time to time so that you don't take friends for granted. I wish you bad luck, again from time to time, so that you will be conscious of the role of chance in life and understand that your success is not completely deserved and that the failure of others is not completely deserved either. And when you lose, as you will from time to time, I hope every now and then your opponent will gloat over your failure. It is a way for you to understand the importance of sportsmanship. I hope you'll be ignored so you know the importance of listening to others. And I hope you will have just enough pain to learn compassion. Whether I wish these things or not, they're going to happen. And whether you benefit from them or not will depend upon your ability to see the message in your misfortunes. Now, I can only say I wish that was my commencement address in middle school. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Mortimer. Supervisors, would please take your keypads and indicate your presence here this evening. Establish the quorum, and we have a quorum. And I think we have 23 present. We have a quorum. We'll move on to the approval of the journal proceedings from June 20th. That's on pages 4 to 9 of your meeting packet. Are there any suggested changes to the journal proceedings as drafted? I see none. I entertain a motion to approve as drafted. Supervisor Leary with the motion, Supervisor Stelgis with the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Moving on to public comment. This is an opportunity at each meeting for members of the public to address the board. No one signed up. I'll ask the question if there's anyone from the public who'd like to speak this evening. I see none. So we'll move on to some various reports we have. We'll start with Adam Cole. So Adam, if you'd come forward. Adam, of course, is the Assistant Veteran Services Director with an annual update. So welcome.
Yes, thank you. I think I was supposed to mention I've got some slides about 13 or 14, so if you're keeping track. So again, I am the Assistant Veteran Service Director. Of course, Tim Moore is our Veteran Service Director, and he's not here today, so I'll be presenting our 2016-17 report. I do want to highlight this is our, was that on?
Yep, there we go. We'll get it coordinated here. There we go.
Okay. I just want to point out this is our logo. This is something that we got about 1.5 years ago for our department. Brand recognition, basically. When you think of Eau Claire County Veteran Services, we want you to think of this logo. That way we can put it places and you'll know what services we provided. So I wanted to highlight that out the gates here. introduce our office a little bit. As far as employees go, we have 3 full-time staff there. Tim Moore, the director, me, the assistant director, and Beth Risen, the admin associate. We also have 3 LTEs, Carl, Elise, and Carl, Elise, sorry, I'm blanking it. But Mi Yang, that's her name, I'm sorry. So we got these LTEs for a project that we've been working on, and I'll be talking about that here in the next few slides. But we're happy to say we're completed with that. So these LTEs are going to be, I guess, dropping off of our workload here too. We also have some non-Eau Claire employees. We work with CET quite a bit. We've got 1 staff, Catherine, with CET, a VA work study. His name is Ben. He comes from the University of Eau Claire. And then we have 11 volunteer drivers to keep our DAV van going. And I'll talk about that here in the future as well. So we're pretty resourceful at our office. We've got a lot of need for help, and we reach out to the community to see what kind of help we can get. So that's what we have. The CETs, we've had as much as 2 at one time and 3 VA work studies. So we've had close to 10 people in our office with the help we've had from the county too. Veteran service, a little snapshot, but our mission is to provide superior services and advocacy for Eau Claire veterans and their families. Simply put, is just take care of our veterans the best way we can with our services. There's no exact number on how many vets we have in Eau Claire. I'd love to know that answer, but I think it's around 8,000 to 9,000 veterans. And these bullet points I have here just highlight some of the things that we mainly do at our office. This is the nuts and bolts of what we do, amongst a lot of other things. But disability and pension claims are the #1 thing we do, but basically disability claims are like workman's comp for veterans. If you got injured in the service, you got an injury now, you're going to get paid for it if we file a claim for it. VA pensions for veterans with low income helps them make ends meet. So just last year, 2016, our county alone has received $18.4 million because of these disability claims and pension claims. Our office was a large part of that. Certainly we weren't the only ones that were doing that, but we can take claim for a lot of that. VA healthcare, that's a very important thing for our veterans, but getting them into the VA healthcare system has saved the county, the state, $17.4 million last year. Veterans out of pocket pay about $50 max per visit. So if you can imagine a regular insurance, they may be paying a lot more. So this saves the veterans money as well. Education, that's also an important thing. We help veterans enroll into the veteran education benefits to allow them to go to school. There's 2 kinds of benefits. It's the tuition that we help them get into. So basically their tuition's covered for the most part. And then it's also a monthly stipend. This $2.7 million you see is the monthly stipend to go to school. So it's basically like they're working to go to school and they get paid for it. So if you guys have gone to post-secondary school or maybe you got kids that go, but you know how hard it is to balance the work-life school balance, a lot of people drop out because they just can't pay the bills or meet the tuition. Our veterans have free tuition for the most part, and they get paid to go to school. So the veterans are more apt to graduate, become successful, get out a lot quicker of college, and be productive. So we're a part of that. Homeless veterans as well. We've got 1 to 2 veterans a week that come through our office, and we connect them with the resources as simple as getting them into the homeless programs, maybe putting them in a hotel for a couple nights, or giving them vouchers or paying their XL bill. So we work with them quite a bit as well. Okay, this is just kind of a trend of the income that has been brought into the county since 2012 to 16 because of the veteran benefits and the services that we help with. So if you can see that in 2012, 27.2 million was brought in, and 2016, 37.2. So it's gone up 10 million in just 4 years. That's in part because of the increase in veterans and in part because of the increase in services that we've been able to provide. So I just want to highlight that. And then as far as our department goes, we are just a fraction of the budget, yet If you do the math, every dollar that is put into our department has a 17,000% return on investment if you were to compare it to these numbers. So we're certainly doing a lot of work with what we're given. Some of the accomplishments here, I'm going to touch on many of these in a few slides, but the ones I'll focus on here is the Veterans Center. Basically mental health counseling for veterans. There is a Veterans Center, nearest one is in La Crosse. It's not easy for our Eau Claire veterans to get there, so we have brought them here to our office. Every Thursday, they meet with our county veterans, and often every other Monday as well. So we're trying to eliminate all the burdens for our veterans to get help and basically make it a one-stop shop for them to get everything they need. Let's see. Then as far as partnerships go, we're not naive. We understand Veteran Services is not going to take care of all our county veterans. So we need to partner with DHS, ADRC, veteran organizations, nursing homes, assisted livings. We work with anybody and everyone that can help our veterans. So we've been doing this a lot lately, and we continue to find new ways to help them. All right, so back to the DAV van. There has been a need for this for years. Tim Moore and I have been there for 2.5 to 3 years at that department. And the moment we got there, we said we need to get a van to get these veterans to their VA medical appointments. So we worked a lot of hours to get this to happen, and we had a lot of help from ADRC as well. But this letter right here, we thought this was interesting, found this in a veteran's file from September 2001, where a veteran was promised a van from somebody, I don't know who, but it was never delivered. So they've been looking at this for years. And we're happy to say that we were able to do it. And this van was up and running in March of 2017. At no cost to the county, no cost to the veterans. It's all funded by the Minneapolis VA. So to date, we've had, well, from March to June, we've had 60 free rides for our veterans, and we had 276 volunteer hours, or 11 volunteer drivers. We do a lot of the training for this van. We also work with the Minneapolis VA to do the training as well. So kind of a collaborative effort here. Okay, Facebook too. This is where things are going as far as communicating with our millennials and the future. Not just Facebook, but other social media platforms. So back in December, January, we created a Facebook page to communicate with the veterans that we were missing. Currently, we have 200 followers. We're just getting started with it, but it's a good way for us to put new benefits out there and basically spread the word for what's going on in our county, in our state, and even our nation. We've used this to reach out to veterans, to find veterans that need free air conditioning. We've gotten free air conditioning for them, free dental care, free tickets to events, but it's a great way for people to hear about us. Both news stations are well aware of this page and follow us, so every time we post something that looks newsworthy, they reach out to us, we get coverage, people hear about us, so it's a win-win for that. Outreach, year to date, we've done 41 unique outreach visits. And just to give you an idea, last year we did 38. So we're only halfway in the year, and we've already surpassed our last year's numbers. But we've got so much more to do. We've done this with the amount of staff and the amount of workload we have. But again, there's a lot of gaps that we haven't got to, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Basically, we're trying to re-image ourselves, re-image the county, and let people know about us. We're going to every event that we can. The most recent one that we've got, biggest one I guess, coming up September 21st at the Eau Claire Expo Center is the Veterans Stand Down. And that's a great event. They've got these all over the state and the nation. So it's exciting to actually have it in our backyard. Electronic documents, I'm pretty sure Tim Moore mentioned this last year, but our goal was to go electronic, get all veterans' files scanned and be in our share folders and electronic documents. So just this month we've completed that. We've scanned 9,360 files. And that was in part because of the help from our LTEs, some contractors. But this is a huge step for us. This allows us to not be tied to our office, basically. Now we can go to veterans and help them where they're at their homes, the nursing homes, the schools, wherever. So this was a great feat that we've just recently completed. All right, challenges. Veteran to staff ratio. Currently, right now, if a veteran were to call and want to meet with Tim Moore or I, it'd be about 3 to 4 weeks. And we realize this is unacceptable, and we try to do what we can, but we've got a lot of work to do. This picture right here is as recent as July 12th, just last week. This is what an early afternoon looked like as far as veterans go. In this picture on the left, there's 3 staff. The rest of them are veterans and or families. So I just show this because you guys aren't there all the time to see kind of what goes on, but this is a common occurrence at our office. I won't say it's all the time, but it's certainly more often than not on the number of veterans that need our help. Next one is marketing and outreach and public education. I mentioned this before, but we need to get out and we need to let veterans know what we do and where we're at and how we can help them. It's amazing to still hear World War II veterans that have never heard about us or been to our office. And we're trying to make sure that we don't miss any of them or any of the future veterans too. VA transportation, a challenge. Right now we can get to Minneapolis VA, we pinned that down, but we still have the clinic in Chippewa Falls and the VA in Toma. So we're going to figure out how to make that work in the next 5-10 years. And then veteran population. With the recent war going on, there's just going to be a surge of veterans that have come to us. Normally after a war goes on, it's about 10 to 15 years where we finally see those veterans come in. So if you do the math, that's about right now. We're going to start seeing an influx of veterans and veterans' needs. So we got to be proactive and we got to figure out how to prepare for that. So future plans. Staff, basically. We're maxed out right now. We're doing as best as we can, and we're certainly trying to help them as good as we can. But we can't help everyone right away. And so right now, we're spending about 20 hours a day meeting with veterans directly. That's on the phone, that's the office visits, and that's the scheduled appointments. So that leaves us about 4 hours a day to do everything else, collaborate, email, innovate, basically bring our office and our department and the county to the next level of veteran services. So we're looking at ways to do that. Outreach, again, just need to do more. We need to get into schools, nursing homes, everywhere a veteran could be or a veteran family member, we need to be there. Toma transportation, I mentioned this, that's a 5 to 10 year plan we have. Educate our veterans. We don't want to just help them, but we want them to know how to do it themselves as well, because the more we can educate our veterans, the more they can help themselves, and they can also help other veterans. So they can help kind of a veteran-to-veteran help system. And then collaboration and co-locate. We're trying to find innovative ways to basically work with other departments, and ADRC seems like a good fit for us to see how we can work together, maybe even co-locate to save resources and services for the county. So we've been working with them for a while. We still got some work to do, but you'll hear more about that and how we're going to work with them. Okay, and then the last thing is the Veterans Tribute. I know I presented this a few months ago. I forget how long ago, but we're up and running. We have a website now. We're collecting donations for this tribute. If you weren't here, we're going to have a tribute just north of Phoenix Park. It's going to be a $2 million project. We're not going to, well, I should probably not say that, but we're going to do, it's going to be big, basically. So right now, we are raising funds. We already have some funds. We're doing kind of a soft rollout, try to reach out to the local businesses and seeing what kind of part they want to be of this. But it's very exciting, and it's going to be a very big thing for Eau Claire County as far as events go and bringing in raising business revenue as well. That's all I have. Is there any questions for me?
Great. Thank you so much, Adam. Any questions for Adam this evening? So Supervisor Lavelle.
I just thank you, Adam, for your report. I'd like to add a little to the stand down September 21st, well, actually the 22nd, the day of the stand down at the Expo Center. We were approached by Jan Dale, who was past president of Women's Auxiliary of Post 53, and Veteran Service Officer Tim Moore came to our meeting on the 9th and requested if they use the Expo Center. And our World War II veteran, Bruce Willett, made the motion that they be allowed to use it, which I thought was really nice of Bruce, and we voted on it, so they're going to use it. But a stand down is a term they use where it was a kind of a lull in a combat zone. It was like a ceasefire, so that's what they call it, as a stand down. So what it does, it brings in, they figure about, we'll probably get 300 to 400 homeless veterans there for the homeless veterans, or veterans down and out. Where they're going to give them, feed them, are they going to have doctors there, chiropractors, barbers, employment opportunities, people, you know, to help them any way they can. But these are mostly homeless and down and out veterans. So we're all invited to come out there. The county board, they said anybody on the board that wants to come out on the 22nd to see what's going on, this sure is invited. And I wish people would take a little time to go out and check it out. And another thing, we got a good press in the Bugle 53 American Legion magazine, and it said a special thanks went on to County Board of Supervisors, Parks and Forest Committee, Tim Moore, County Veteran Service Office, and Bruce Willett for helping us make the stand down possible. And it said a special thank you goes to Supervisor Willett, a World War II veteran, and Post 53 member, myself. And so both are veterans and continue to serve our country very much. But you look at Bruce being a World War II veteran. How many World War II veterans serve on county boards or commissions, or in the state of Wisconsin, or how many World War II veterans serve on that in the country? So, Bruce, we thank you a lot for, and I'm sure the veterans thank you for the job you did, and thank you for your service in World War II. So make sure you guys, anybody can make it out there, can make it. So.
Supervisor Willett.
Nobody.
Yep, you're fine.
Yeah, I just want to say I've had a couple occasions, or in fact 3 occasions when I needed information. And I went into the VA office, and here are these young guys. I think they're getting younger, either that or maybe I'm getting older, I'm not sure. But they were very helpful and quick to get back to me, so I want to express my appreciation for their work. They've made a very proactive approach, as you have heard tonight, so they're to be congratulated, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Adam, I just have a few practical questions.
Okay.
The DAV van, is that like on demand? Do you just, someone calls and says, I need a ride to Chippewa VA Hospital, and you say, okay, we'll come pick you up?
So the way it works right now is we only run on odd days of the week, and if a veteran wants a ride, they have to schedule their appointments on odd days, and they can call our office to do that, or they can actually go to our homepage and sign up online for that. So currently we're only odd days, basically because of the workload that it takes to run that we can't do anymore right now.
So, and when you say odd day of the week, you're talking about the number, an odd number day?
Correct, weekdays, so 1, 3, 5, as long as during the weekdays.
And so you're basically, is it only for medical appointments?
Yes, VA medical appointments. It's funded by Minneapolis VA Healthcare System, so it'll only take them from here to the VA. We can't pick up veterans at their homes and bring them. They have to meet here, and it goes to the VA.
Okay, and the VA in Minneapolis, not the one in Chippewa?
Correct. Now, Chippewa is connected to that VA, so they're together, but we only go to Minneapolis, and that's where I was saying we would like to go to Chippewa, but we can't handle that right now. So
I have a quick follow-up. So you had on your slide that you're collaborating with the ADRC, and that was part of my question. So if you have a veteran who's either disabled or over the age of 60, do you actually suggest that they use the ADRC for benefits, or is there some kind of cross-training between the Veterans Administration and the ADRC so that the, say that the options counselors in the ADRC know all of the things that you know, or do you kind of have cross-training going on?
So Tim Moore actually used to work for ADRC, so he's got a lot of the ins and the know-how. He kind of understands the program a little bit. So if there's a veteran that we feel could use more help and we can't help them, we walk them right down there. So there's some cross-training going. I'd like to know their functions a little more, and they'd like to know mine a little more. So that's why we're trying to work together to see how we can do that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Supervisor Conley.
Thank you. And we think you're doing a great job, you and Tim. I just had a question regarding the school tuition thing. Don't the veterans pay into that when they're active so that they can get benefits when they get out?
That's an option for sure, but it's not all veterans. It's called the buy-up is what you're talking about. Veterans have the option to basically invest in their education and get more out of it. But if a veteran were to do 4 years of active duty, they get 31 to 38 credits of tuition that's covered. That's at the federal level, but also at the state level, if you're a Wisconsin vet, you get 128 credits on top of it. So you can almost get your doctors without paying a thing for it. But yes, you're talking about the buy-up, and that's an option too.
Thank you. Any Supervisor Schroffnagel?
Adam, I have heard that the state of Wisconsin is potentially going to be losing 3 of the facilities that veterans have for rehabilitation or living. What can we do to help fend that off and secure funding for the veterans on a federal level?
Sure. So as a VSO or Veteran Service Officer, there's actually a state organization, and that organization is trying to fight to get some legislation, actually with the help of the county association too, to get legislation for VA funding to support many projects, including our office. That specific thing you're talking about is the Union Grove and King Veterans Homeless Program. So yeah, that's the push for the federal VA to end homelessness is, in their eyes, is coming to a near, at least in this area. Now we're still fortunate though, we have a homeless program in Chippewa Falls for our veterans. I used to actually be the director there. So basically we've got to keep the beds full, and we got to show that not only the state but at the federal level that there's still a need for these veterans. There's only 40 beds in Chippewa Falls, and Union Grove and King, I think they had 20 and 40. So now where are they going to go? So we've got to figure that out. But it's just spread the word and the need, basically.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Willett.
Oh, I have one more thing to say. I was a recipient of a lot of benefits. They paid my way through college, through a master's degree. They paid me what sounds small today, but it was big. $75 a month in all tuition. And there were many, many veterans I know at the University of Wisconsin who took advantage of it. Sometimes I've heard my generation referred to as the greatest generation. I think that's a bunch of hogwash because there's been great generations since that time. I hope the greatest generation will be one that doesn't produce any veterans. That's my comment.
Okay, and maybe on that note, I don't see any other questions. Maybe we'll wrap this up. Adam, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And convey our appreciation to Beth and Tim as well.
Yes, thank you.
And the LTEs, whatever their names are. No, I
Yeah.
don't.
Sorry. I froze.
I know. It's okay, you rallied, you came back.
Don't tell them I said it.
So, okay, Frank Jackson. Purchasing update.
Sure. All right. It'd be a tough report to follow. Adam did a great job. We're an internal services department, somewhat different than what Adam is. Most of you know what we provide. I'm Frank Draxler, working as purchasing director for the county. Right here is an overview of our main programs. And I've been here a long time. I think I've seen many of you a long time. I'm going to skip and get to some of the projects we worked on. But I just want to have you look at this. In the bottom, I indicated here amazing staff. So we have an amazing staff that puts out lots of work. We have 2 people in purchasing for this city that I work with. We have 2 people in purchasing for the county, plus myself in purchasing. In addition to that, we have a safety coordinator employed by the county, works half-time at the city and half-time at the county. And we have an employee and a half, so 1.5 FTEs in the print shop and mail. So that's our staffing. And these are some of the projects we've been working on the last year or 2. About a year ago, a consultant, CLA, Clifton Larson Allen, same people that we use for auditors, came in and reviewed some of our departments, including purchasing, and they noted some deficiencies in purchasing, specifically the separation of duties. And so we needed to get stronger on separation of duties, meaning too deep approval process, too deep functions when submitting requisitions and purchasing. Shortly after that, Mark DeVries from Sickett came in, a consultant, and recommended various procedures and processes, more on processes, streamlining some of our processes and making better use of the software, use of the electronic services that we have. The 2, we tried to work together and put those 2 together in new procedures and policies. We've done that. We're right in the middle of training right now. We're training most departments, almost all departments on that, and it's going very well. So that separation of duties sometimes creates more work for departments, more work for us, but we need that there for not only quality, but so nobody commits fraud and other things. The electronic processes speeds things up. So as one may slow it down, but better protection and accountability, the other one we're getting more advanced. So it's working well. So that covered the electronic requisition, new policies, changes in purchasing thresholds. We reviewed that and changed those as well. We've updated our property insurance. About a year ago, we signed up with a new property insurance called MPEC. The State Property Insurance Fund pretty much went out of business, so we needed something. It's a good company. It's working very well. At the same time, we updated our property inventory, and now we put that on SharePoint so departments can see what equipment they have on that inventory, and they update it more often. It's something that has been lagged in the past, but we've caught up, and now we're doing a good job with that. The living wage ordinance, of course, was passed last year, and we implemented that this year. Prevailing wage, on the other hand, for most projects was eliminated. And the last thing I want to say here is OpenGov is a new software that we're trying to implement. We're working with that provides transparent financial information. I think some of you had asked for that in the past. We started rolling this out. We've got caught up with some other projects. We're still doing some quality review checks, but I do have a little bit, and I want to take a minute to go through and show you this. This is, I think you can see it. Can you see this picture or not? Okay, well, I was here earlier and I readjusted our resolution and brightness, and that's not any better. Well, we'll have to work on that again. It's a great tool. and I'm sorry you can't see it here, but it has many different reports, and we've started with some of our general reports. It loads our financial software into this program. So it's updated daily, really when our financial software is updated. And this here is just an example of the expenses for all departments. And it shows the expenses for, this is 2016, but you can change the year on it, June 2017. It has lots of different information. This one shows encumbrances. Mostly people use this to look at their budget and look at their expenses versus revenues. We will have training on this, and we'll show everybody here how to use it. This will be released to department heads this summer. It is being released. This one here, CIP report. We've worked on this one just in the last couple of days, but it shows different ways you can graph things. It shows in this example of which departments we use for the capital projects fund. It keeps track of it not only by department, but we can keep track of it by funding source. So some of them most of them are bonds in this one, but some of them are fees, or some of them are equipment funds and so forth. A great tool to use. We're rolling this out to departments. Once departments get used to this and make sure it covers what they need, we'll roll this out to committees that want to see it, and then we'll allow the public to look at it. So this is something that different municipalities have the public view, and they can look at, and eventually we'll have all of our payments on there as well. So if somebody wants to look up a check to some company or who we paid for this project or this service, that'll be on there. The living wage, when we come to that, one of my last slides here is some other projects we worked on, is the crime and public official bond insurance. Because we had that theft, we had to go through another application to buy insurance. We went through several different emails and mailings of our policies and procedures, but we did obtain a one-year policy. It used to be a 3-year policy. We obtained a 1-year policy, and so we're going year to year as long as we have no losses, and as long as we keep up our policies and procedures, I think we'll do okay. The cost went from $7,000 to $11,000, so the cost of it isn't that high, but it did bump up, and the deductible was greater. We had many phone system changes and upgrades last year that takes up a lot of our time for purchasing. The procurement card and fleet card. So procurement card is like a charge card. We have about 200 cards out to various employees. Employees are allowed, first they're trained on it, and they're allowed to use the card up to a certain amount, depending on the employee and their expected use. But line staff employees can use that card and get something they need right now. So that it makes things more efficient I guess, for the employees to go ahead and do it. We need it for the work. They do it. We make sure they're trained, and we audit it on the back end. So we spend more time on the back end on this one versus the purchase orders. We spend more time on the front end. The fleet card stays with the vehicle, but is used for gas and for repair of cards. The electronic contract signature software, we just started working on that. So again, I think this is one that's going to help us process contracts much faster. Same as contract management software, we're reviewing that. At this point, we have various Excel spreadsheets in different offices, maybe some other software management, but we want one comprehensive software. Our office right now is working on purging inactive vendors. It hasn't been done for a while, so we're spending time on that. These are challenges for the next year or two. as Adam mentioned, staff time. We are hurting for staff. We're involved a lot with telecommunications and risk management, and it takes up lots of time. We are continuing to update, align, and train on purchasing procedures, and we'll concentrate on that until that's completed. Health insurance cost continues to be a challenge every year. We've begun working on a worker comp review. Right now, workers' comp is handled by HR and purchasing mostly, but we want to look at a flow chart and see who does what, see if we can, again, create some efficiencies and streamline that process. We charge departments for liability insurance, work comp insurance, and auto insurance. And the way we do that and how much we charge for, we've begun to look at that as well. So lots of changes in staff, and sometimes that creates more questions, and questions are good because we're looking at reviewing what we did in the past and why we're doing it and so forth. So that's a project we're working on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Frank. Any questions for Frank this evening? Supervisor Stelgis.
Frank, could you elaborate a little bit on what your expectations are for the contract management software?
Sure. I think it still needs to be defined, but my expectations is to have some software that would hold all contracts, for one, that's shared amongst departments. So departments can look at that and not call Frank or Keith's office and say, do you have a contract on this service? Or when was the last time we bid out financial software? Or they can actually go in there and look, anybody can go in there and look at them. Not change it, but at least look and see what the latest contract is, what the latest addendum is, and the cost. It would have a tickler system. So if we need, the contract's going to expire at the end of the year, we don't wait until November and say, hey, we need to do an RFP. It would probably remind us in May or June and say, hey, this is coming up. We need to start doing something now.
And the current procurement software that you use doesn't have...
We don't have software that does any of that. Mm-mm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Crowley.
Thank you. Frank, when I talked with you earlier this year about the costs associated with the embezzlement, you told me that the cost of Clifton Larson Allen and the Skickrich or whatever that consultant contract person was were not included in that. And nor was the increase in the insurance, which was, what, $4,000 plus a $25,000 increase in deductible. So, had those rightfully been included, the report that the board got said it was about $380,000 cost, when in fact it should have been closer to $600,000 had those costs been included. I think that's information that was incorrectly delivered. The board should have that information.
Can I comment? You know, it's correct. We did pay money for those services, and it did increase the insurance. We needed those services anyway. This is my understanding. We needed to correct some of our procedures. We needed to update that. We should be doing that annually. Some of it hasn't been done. I think that theft kicked us in the pants and said, you got to get going. So we did. So perhaps we did spend money in the last year or two now. We probably should have spent a little bit of that every year for the last 10 years to help us.
That was triggered by the investment.
I would agree. Mm-hmm.
And also, wouldn't it have been prudent to, the job description for the finance director says that person is supposed to set up and maintain a financial system as well as a cash flow system for the county. So we spent, the county spent taxpayer money of almost $200,000 doing that, and then hired a finance director, when in fact the finance director could have been hired and actually done that work, and then would have been more familiar with it in the process. Seemed to make that would have been more prudent. Not your issue, but I wanted to...
Not my issue. I can tell you one issue, though, is that finance director is very busy. And everybody up there is very busy.
Everybody's busy.
Yeah, but there's lots of work up there.
Any other questions for Frank this evening? Thank you very much, appreciate it. Next, Lynn Nelson and Toby LeMahieu from the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. Welcome.
Thank you.
I believe Supervisors Steinhauer and Clark, I think, are representatives on the commission.
They are.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, and my name is Lynn Nelson, and I am the Executive Director of the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. I'm here tonight with Toby LeMahieu, and we'd like to take a few minutes of your time to do a couple of things. I'm going to provide you with a little bit of background on the Regional Planning Commission, the work we do, and what we're about, and then give you some examples of some of the projects we've been working on in Eau Claire County and the region. And then I'm going to turn it over to Toby, and she's going to give you an update on the Regional Business Fund. And the Regional Business Fund administers a regional revolving loan fund for businesses, and staff of the Regional Planning Commission administer that as well. So she'll provide you with an update on that. And our goal in providing you with this information is that you'll be able to walk away with a better understanding of the work that we do and how we might best be able to continue to partner with Eau Claire County moving into the future. I also want to point out that you have a packet of information at your seats, and it includes a lot of information on our organization and the Regional Business Fund, projects we've been working on in the region over the past year or so, and then also contact information for Toby or I if you'd like to be in touch with us in the future. So first, a little bit of information on our organization. The West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission is a multi-county planning organization that was established in 1971 under state statutes. We're one of 9 regional planning commissions that cover the entire state, and we cover 7 counties, including Clark, Dunn, Eau Claire, Polk, St. Croix, and Chippewa counties. We're governed by a 21-member board made up of 3 representatives from each of our 7 counties. In Eau Claire County, those representatives include Kathleen Clark, Gertie Steinhauer, and John Frank. These individuals provide valuable guidance to our organization as we work on providing services that are valuable to the region. And we'd like to thank those individuals for the valuable services that they provide. In addition to input provided by those and other board members, we also have a staff of 12 people with degrees in planning, finance, and public administration. It is those people that carry out the work that we need to do in the region in response to the needs that we're seeing. The overall goal of our organization is to assist units of government in planning for the physical, social, and economic development needs of the region. And we do that in 3 ways. We serve as a coordinating entity between state and federal agencies and local units of government, so a go-between between those units of government and the local government. We also assist units of government in looking at issues that occur at a regional level. And those could be issues affecting all of the 7 counties that we cover at one time, or it could be issues that impact a smaller number of jurisdictions, but the issues might cross political boundaries, and we like to cover those issues as well. And then we also provide technical assistance, advice, and services directly to units of government. Our services fall into 4 general categories, including economic development, transportation, community development, and mapping. And over the past year, we've worked on a wide variety of projects in those areas in Eau Claire County. And I'd just like to give you a few examples of those projects. There's many more examples in your packet, but it'll highlight some of the ways that we work. So 2 of the projects that I'm going to talk to you about are actually regional projects, but they're projects where Eau Claire County really took a lead. And the first one is the completion of the Eau Claire River Watershed Plan. The development of the Eau Claire Watershed Plan is a project that was led by the Eau Claire County Land and Conservation Division, and then the project was facilitated and written by staff from the Regional Planning Commission. Last week, that plan was approved by the Environmental Protection Agency as meeting the 9 key elements required for a non-point water source quality plan. The plan focuses particularly on phosphorus and sedimentation within the streams and lakes of communities within the 5 counties covered by the watershed. By having that type of plan in place, communities and other partner nonprofits and other organizations are eligible to apply for Section 319 grants under the Clean Water Act. And there's one sheet in your packet that highlights that project. And yep, it was a really important project that we worked very closely with Eau Claire County on. And I'd like to thank Eau Claire County for really playing such a leadership role in that project. I think a very large area outside of Eau Claire County as well for the entire region benefited from that project. The second project I wanted to talk about was the completion of a Wisconsin Department of Transportation Alternatives, or TAP program application that we worked on with Eau Claire County. Eau Claire County was the lead on that application, but it requested funding for 3 counties to complete bike and pedestrian plans, and that's Eau Claire, Chippewa, and Dunn counties. That application was prepared and submitted in 2016, and it was awarded with Eau Claire County acting as the lead for that project. We're now getting ready to start to kick off that project, and with the work to start in August. So again, another very important project moving forward that Eau Claire County played a lead role in. The final project that I wanted to talk about was a project where we provide direct assistance to local units of government. And that's a project in the city of Augusta where we helped them apply for community development block grant funds for infrastructure work that was needed for the construction of a new assisted living facility. So for that project, we assisted them in writing the grant application, and then in 2016 helped the community to administer those funds. So that's an example of services that are provided directly to a community. So that's a quick snippet of some of the work that we've been doing in your area. We value our partnership with Eau Claire County and look forward to working with you more in the future. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Toby, and she will provide you with an update on the Regional Business Fund.
Thank you, Lynn. Welcome, Toby.
Thank you. So I spend 100% of my time at the RPC on the contract that the RPC has with the Regional Business Fund. I'm just going to quickly talk to you about how the Regional Business Fund came into existence, a little bit about our programs, and then just a little snapshot about what activity has occurred in Eau Claire County recently. So the Regional Business Fund, like I alluded to, was created by the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. Due to the strong cooperation and hard work of past staff, county officials, community members, there was a successful consolidation of 31 community development block grant revolving loan funds within our 7-county region. The consolidated effort was finalized in May of 2007, so this year marks the 10-year anniversary of that consolidation. The Regional Business Fund, or RBF, offers low-interest loans to businesses within those 7 counties that expand within the region, diversify the economy, add new technology, revitalize buildings in the region's downtowns, create or retain quality jobs, and leverage private capital investment in the region. We have 5 main loan programs that we administer through the RBF, and funds are very flexible and can be used for a variety of different things, including working capital, acquisition of equipment, machinery, furniture or fixtures, site improvements, land and building acquisition, new building construction or building renovation, and leasehold improvements, including inventory purchases. So really any sort of business financing need that a business has. Since the consolidation 10 years ago, we have, the Regional Business Fund has assisted 46 businesses, including 20 startups with over $2.5 million in financing, and the businesses have projected to create 293 jobs, all just in Eau Claire County. Some recent projects include Modicum Brewing Company in Altoona, JY Collision Center in Fall Creek, Tree Savvy in the town of Pleasant Valley, and Trendstone Surfaces on East Claremont Avenue. In closing, I'd like to recognize the valuable contributions that Eau Claire County residents have made to our organization, including representatives on our board of directors. Those are Steve Arntzen and Pam Owen. We also have a revolving loan fund committee specific to Eau Claire County that decision all of the requests that we get. I'd like to thank the members of those that sit on that committee. Those are Steve Arntzen, Larry Jolivet, Tim Pavich, Dale Peters, Natasha Plank-Odom, Dave Pokrant, and your own Catherine Schaff. Also a big thanks to Luke Hansen, who is the Eau Claire County EDC Executive Director, who refers people to us and also helps out when we need him. So thanks again for having us.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Lynn, any questions concerning the Regional Planning Commission this evening? Don't see any?
Thank you.
Great, thank you both very much, appreciate it. We've got a number of reports, we're coming down the home stretch, so to speak, of them. And Dave Hayden would be next with an update on a grant application that the county is working on for rural broadband.
Just want to give a little background on the Public Service Commission broadband expansion grants. It's been a program that's been around for several years. In fact, we were lucky enough to be awarded one in 2014. And this grant that we applied for in 2018 is actually the next logical step in what we were able to accomplish in the 2014 grant. That grant really laid the groundwork for this project. And what we did in that project was to engineer a network that allowed our wireless infrastructure to be shared between the county, a public entity, and Packerland Broadband, a private entity, to let them provide internet service to residents particularly in the eastern part of Eau Claire County, where there's a lot of gaps in internet service. It proved the concept that public and private partners could work together and deliver service to the residents, yet maintain the security required for public safety and emergency services. And it was very successful in doing that. The second part of that project was to construct a new tower at Lake Eau Claire. There were some issues and construction delays, and that actually worked to our benefit because we'd originally planned to install WiMAX, which is basically 3G wireless service, and the technology always improves, gets cheaper, and we were able to put LTE there. So the new proposal that we just submitted takes what we learned there in using LTE, and we would like to, we proposed upgrading the Augusta, Fall Creek, Fairchild, and Wilson towers to LTE so that Packerland Broadband could provide internet service to the residents in those areas at the higher speeds using the LTE infrastructure. Let me put a map up of that kind of shows the project that we proposed. It's actually made up of 3 separate elements. Technology challenged. So the project that we're proposing here is really made up of 3 pieces. Like I said, first we want to take the 4 green towers that are not LTE and upgrade them from WiMAX to LTE. The purple tower is the Lake Eau Claire tower that's already LTE, and Packerland has been successful in providing service from that tower as well as the other towers, but is anxious to use the higher speed and higher capabilities of LTE in that broader area. The second thing we want to do is represented by the red line, and that is to build a point-to-point connection to provide redundancy for the Fall Creek Tower and also for the Mount Tom Tower. And that, in addition to providing redundancy for the residents, the primary focus there is to provide the redundancy for public safety. The Fall Creek Tower is the core of the public safety voice wireless network, and we've actually suffered a fiber cut, and they were down for most of a day. So we're looking at this to provide that redundancy to give better availability in the case of another fiber failure like that. The third piece is a new technology called TV Whitespace, and Packerland is really excited about this because TV Whitespace is the snow that's on the channels that aren't being broadcast in the local area. They've developed technology that utilizes this spectrum to provide high-speed bandwidth for internet connectivity, works well in rural areas where there aren't a lot of TV stations. Lake Eau Claire is ideal for that. So the third part of the project is to build a TV white space wireless radio system on that tower, and then let Packerland use that to provide internet service to residents in that area. So, the way I see this is the three steps are, we're building on what we did in the first grant, we're building a robust and redundant network with the point-to-point wireless, and then we're looking to the future with TV Whitespace to take the next step in delivering service to the residents of Eau Claire County.
Thanks so much for the update. I know we've talked about rural broadband for a number of years, and appreciate all the efforts you're making to get some outside funding to make some of those good things happen. Any questions for Dave this evening? Supervisor Waterman.
Yep.
Dave Hayden, a question. First of all, I do remember a story at the last SYNC meeting, the annual meeting with legislators and county board supervisors were invited to that, where an example of that Lake Eau Claire tower, because that was providing internet services from Packerland Broadband, or CCI, that public-private project funded by that grant. There was a lady living out there in Lake Eau Claire that had to travel into town, Eau Claire, every day because she was a medical transcriptionist. But when that tower went live, and when Packerland Broadband was then selling internet service, she could work at home. And I don't know if you recall, but she was actually in tears when she, for the first time, was able to purchase internet service at her home, and not leave her home, but work for her home, and at the same time take care of her disabled husband, which was an example of how our public-private projects help people increase property values, and just make our county so much better. Just a question about the LTE. By expanding to LTE, the circumference of the circles, I assume, gets larger. Any guesstimate of more square miles that might be served?
I forget the actual numbers, but there is another mile, maybe, of radius that is covered. And but the primary advantage is the capacity and the bandwidth that's available. The other thing that we're doing is, when we built the WiMAX network, we used a 3x120 an antenna scheme. What we're looking at is a 4x90 antenna scheme, which makes it much more efficient from a frequency usage perspective. So in addition to getting better coverage, we're also utilizing, adding capacity by adding the additional antennas.
One added question too, the impact for public safety with the greater coverage out in that area, does that also help fire, public safety, police, EMS?
EMS, yeah, takes advantage of that because of the 12 lead program. The primary advantage of this particular project for public safety is the redundancy for the network in providing that backup path in case there's a failure. So it's a true advantage for public safety as well as the residents.
Thank you. Supervisor Stelgis.
Thanks. Dave, I'm just trying to understand a little better the business relationships and the partnership here. If I understand correctly, Packerland basically uses the towers that the county owns. Is the county responsible for the tower connection back into the general internet backbones?
No, what happens is we share the wireless infrastructure, and then as soon as it comes back to the hardwired network, we drop off onto Packerland's network, and they take it from there and provide the internet through their network.
So does Packerland pay the county anything, or
we share the cost of maintenance, and we work together from that standpoint.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dave this evening? I see none. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And our last presentation, a brief update on the budget process. County Administrator Shaw.
Thank you. The budgets are in process right now. Work papers have been distributed to the different departmental managers, and the committees are scheduling their work sessions to actually review budget requests. The budgets are due on August 20th. We have released the budget survey as well. I would encourage you to spread that to those who you know and encourage them to take that survey. The Finance and Budget Committee uses that information as part of their deliberation. And the first of the Finance and Budget listening sessions is being held this week on Thursday in Fall Creek. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any questions for Catherine? Okay, moving on, you have some written reports in your packet, and under presentation of petitions, claims, and communications, some correspondence concerning rezoning requests that Planning and Development Committee will be taking up, and some correspondence from Congressman Kine. Are there any other announcements this evening that anyone would like to make? I see none. We'll get on to our legislative business. First reading of ordinances by committee, file 34.
This ordinance makes changes to the county code in chapters 3.50 and 3.85 as part of the strategic plan process.
And we'll bring that back at our next meeting, August 15th, file 35.
This ordinance makes changes to Title 10 of the county code as part of the strategic plan process.
And likewise, we'll bring that back to our next meeting, file 38.
This ordinance makes changes to chapter 2.28 and Title 9 of the county code for the strategic plan process.
And likewise, next meeting, and lastly, under first reading, file 42.
To amend section 10.01.080 of the code, County Highway H.
And likewise, we'll bring that back on August 15th. Moving on to agenda item 10, why don't we start with the addendum? So if you get that document in front of you, please. We'll do the addendum first, and then we'll move back to the original packet. So file 41.
To add 1 FTE kitchen manager position, grade I, and 2.73 FTE cook positions, grade E.
May I have a motion, please? A motion by Supervisor Miller, second by Supervisor Willett, and an explanation by Supervisor Clark. Do we want to start with you and then Supervisor Miller? Okay, so Supervisor Clark from the Human Resources Committee, and Supervisor Miller, Deputy Vice Chair of the ADRC.
The Human Resources Committee dealt with this last week and passed it unanimously. It's a win-win for the residents of Eau Claire County and those who depend upon our ADRC's nutrition program. As you know, bids that came, the one bid, that viable bid that came in on the nutrition program was a huge increase over the current costs. And so people in the ADRC put their heads together and decided that this would be a good opportunity to bring it in-house. They searched for a location. They found a very reasonable location in Fall Creek, which, as you may remember, when our good supervisor from Fall Creek was here, it's the center of the county, so it works out very well. And we should thank the past Supervisor Zeman for telling us that, letting us know that. The costs are much, much better for the ADRC and therefore for the constituents and our citizens of Eau Claire County. They'll be saving calculated about $6 a meal, which would be an extremely positive step in preparing the Meals on Wheels and the nutrition congregate meals. And so, is there a cost? Yes, there's a cost. but it will be covered by grants and by the fund balance in the ADRC. And so there is no fiscal impact for these 3 positions. One is the kitchen manager, which will be full-time, and then 2 cooks, which will each be 0.73. I would urge your support of this. I think this is a great opportunity for us to move forward with this program and continue to provide the necessary services. Lots and lots of people depend on our frail elderly, depend on Meals on Wheels. We would like to be able to continue to do that at a reasonable cost. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The ADRC board has been looking at the whole nutrition program concerns for quite some time. In fact, there's a subcommittee that deals and focuses just directly on that. And we've been concerned about it primarily because the funding through Older Americans Act has been flatlined over the past number of years. And while our costs have slowly gone up, some of the donations have come in a little bit better, but we've still been having to dip into reserves that had been built up over time when we were in a little bit better situation and received more federal dollars. So this idea actually has been floating around in staff's minds and in the committee's minds for some time. And given the circumstance this year with the bidding process and what have you, they just put it into high gear. It's not a new concept by any means. It would be to Eau Claire County, of course, but not new to the state of Wisconsin. Right now there are 15, 20 counties operating a similar type of structured nutrition program, along with several of the tribes in the state of Wisconsin. And it is highly received, and the Greater Wisconsin Agency on Aging speaks of it quite highly as to being so cost efficient. And so, and the fact that we can work together with the Feed My People food bank and obtain the food costs at a much greater, or lower price, I should say. So when this all came to the board, it was enthusiastically endorsed by our board chair, Kathy Schneider, and the majority of the members. Now I know it wasn't completely everybody on the board that supported this for a couple of reasons. They were afraid that we were going too fast or didn't have enough information, but by and large, everybody wants to see this move forward. I can't think of, but like I said, I enthusiastically support this. I've been on this subcommittee for a number of years, scratching my head with other committee members. We need to be able to come up with a program to meet the needs of our elderly and yet be more cost efficient. And this is just ideal. This is, as if you had an opportunity to read through some of the fact sheet material, you know, our cost would be somewhere between $6, $7 versus currently $9, $10, $11. So it's a win-win, as Supervisor Clark said, and I really strongly urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion, Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very enthusiastic about this program. I was on the ADRC board for 6 years, and now I'm on the Nutrition Committee board. We've had over the years, we've had several brainstorming sessions looking for new and different ways to do Meals on Wheels. The county serves about 300 to 350 meals every day, and they're throughout the county, so it's not as though it's all concentrated right here in the city. And so finding nutritious meals and having them prepared in a way that's palatable as well as cost-effective has been a very difficult thing for the ADRC to do. Notably, several other counties have already implemented this, and as the others have said, the tribes have as well. But closest to us is Barron County, that's had a very successful program that they have brought their meals in-house. And I think the collaboration with Feed My People, it just really makes it a win-win for Eau Claire County. Of course, I think everyone's probably aware that the nutrition program is primarily funded through state and federal dollars, through the Older Americans Act dollars, and so the moving forward as the cost of the traditional way of having Meals on Wheels, as those costs have increased, the commensurate amount that we would be getting in our grants would not have increased. So it would have started to be a more substantial burden on tax levy. And given that Meals on Wheels are going to the most fragile individuals in our county, and we want these people to remain in their home, because as soon as individuals are moved out of their home and put into foster care, it's much more expensive. I mean, we're talking about $6 a day. It's much more expensive to be in a nursing home. So we want people to remain in their home, and if what we can do for them is to serve them a hot meal 5 days a week, that's really very positive. So I'm very excited about this, and I hope the board supports it.
Thank you. Supervisor Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention that about 2 weeks ago when we had the Housing Authority hearing at the Fairchild Resident Senior Living Center, the Meals on Wheels program was one of the issues we heard from residents about. They were very supportive of that, and so I'm very supportive of this. We've been hearing more and more from some of our clientele how important this program is, and so they really were expressing how much they wanted to continue, and we're hoping we could make sure that it would go on in the future. So encourage your support.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Supervisor Chronic.
Thank you. Just an operational question. So the people that deliver these meals, then will they have to go to Fall Creek to pick them up to bring them back to Eau Claire?
Supervisor Miller, can you answer that question? We also have Jennifer Spakine, the director of ADRC, who could answer the question. But Supervisor Miller, or
Jim, could you?
If there's no objection,
I think it was, yeah.
would you come to the microphone? Community television is recording it, and just make sure everybody can hear the answer. So the question is about delivery from the kitchen.
So to answer that question, no, the volunteers will not have to go to Fall Creek to pick up the meals to deliver them in Eau Claire. The facility that we're looking at in Fall Creek actually has 2 vans that would be a part of the lease agreement. We already have 3 paid driver positions, and those individuals will transport the majority of the food from the Fall Creek facility to the volunteer pickup sites that they go to now. So there really shouldn't be any impact on our volunteers.
Very much. Supervisor Anton.
Thank you. As some of you might have noticed on the article within the paper, I was one of the 2 people who voted against this. I've since completely changed my mind because more information has come to my attention. Jennifer and I talked about this. She put together an excellent projected cost comparison. And as we look at this, it was just mentioned briefly, at the very least, the low estimate is $6.25. The highest estimate is $7.52. If we're looking at our expenses, and the cost of the only bid that we have is $10.46. So that's 30 to 40% better position money-wise to go ahead with this project. It certainly seems like there's little doubt that financially this is the right thing to do, and I'm strongly in support of it. I have a couple of areas I think that might be interest, and perhaps if Jennifer might respond to these, it might be helpful to us. have an available ADRC staff that is occupied with doing other things, of course, and now they're going to be taking this on as an addition. I do believe that she's in a position to say that they can handle it well, but we ought to hear it from her, not from me, because I'm a new kid on the block. I've been on this committee for less than a year, so I don't know much about that. There also the possibility of things going wrong, as typically they do, as we heard from Supervisor Mortimer, and when they do, if we can prepare against that by thinking in advance, that would be a helpful thing. But I do have some comments, if you would, please.
Sure. In terms of staffing, that's why we're obviously requesting these 3 positions. This full-time kitchen manager position is really the assistance that we need to get this up and off the ground. Myself and Becky Hinsman, our nutrition program supervisor, have been doing the majority of the work thus far, and adding in that nutrition program or the kitchen manager position will give us the assistance that we need. In addition to that, we are in the process of hopefully obtaining a agreement with the Greater Wisconsin Agency on Aging Resources, who would be providing a consultant to us through a company called Sustainable Kitchens based out of Milwaukee, and that would be at no cost to the ADRC, and they would assist us with all of the startup. So we have experts at our disposal for creating and sustaining kitchens who would help us as soon as we were ready to start rolling this out this fall.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Supervisor McKinney.
Thank you. Maybe I'll get reelected if I ever figure out how to run this equipment.
It was here. I had you, but I didn't see it earlier.
When this was presented to the ADRC board, I think the piece that really grabbed me was the presence of a couple people from Barron County who has been running their program like this since 1978 and has been willing to collaborate and work with Jennifer and her staff in working out all the kinks to how to make this happen. To me, looking at reducing costs, eliminating the middle person, which absolutely would eliminate some costs, giving quality control where maybe we didn't have it before, and using local partnerships probably in a better way. So to me, this is like absolutely in favor of this, and they'd be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Supervisor Mortimer.
Just a comment too, in addition, the situation we had back in June when we had an ADRC meeting, Mr. Chair, was that we found out that the results of the bids that went out for the Meals on Wheels program came back, and because of the living wage ordinance, folks did not bid. So we had a situation of quite a cost increase with the only bids that did come in, and we were discussing at that meeting that the alternative at that time with the current model that we had would be to take a third of the Meals on Wheels folks off of the list. That was just over 100 seniors, mostly homebound, of course, and that wasn't, of course, a course of that anybody wanted to see happen. And so the only alternative for the county, this is a little bit of the backstory for these positions, was to change the model, which kudos to our director of the ADRC, Jennifer, for doing a lot of work in June and July between those 2 ADRC board meetings to figure out how the model works and to talk to other people and what are best practices, etc. But just so everybody knows that the rates that we were paying for the Eau Claire and the Altoona area were $3.97 a meal. $3.97. And $6.95 in the Augusta Fairchild area. So that's into the old model. The per cost meal that we have is now the 2018 estimate with the impact of the living wage ordinance is $6.25 on the projected low end, and the high end is $7.52. And I just wanted to point out that two of the casualties I feel a little bad about of the living wage ordinance is that we did lose a hospital that did not bid, Sacred Heart Hospital, who was providing those meals. Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, at $3.97 a meal. They were providing those at cost or below cost. And I checked with Frank that I think they were providing those Meals on Wheels since 1991. Taking that out of the model means that it really doesn't work anymore with the flatline dollars that we have to support the program. So that's a little bit of the backstory why we're facing an entirely new model, looking at Barron County, looking at other counties, having to hire these positions. Just for point of clarification, the amendment that I presented, does that get voted on before this issue?
You need to make a motion to get that before the body.
Okay. Would that be appropriate for me to do at this point?
Yes, it would be.
Then I would like to make a motion, which is copy placed at each of the desks, thanks to the county clerk. The motion is an amendment that I would like to offer on page 1, line 16, inserting, whereas in order to provide the ADRC with additional time to design and operationalize this new model of in-house provisioning meals for the senior nutrition program, the option of continuing the program with existing vendors, Sacred Heart Hospital and the Augusta Health and Rehabilitation, should be available for 2018 if needed. And whereas the cost of continuing with the existing vendors in 2018 would be roughly comparable to 2017 if the county waives the provisions of the living wage ordinance as allowed in section 295.050. On page 1, line 23, insert, be it further resolved that the Eau Claire County Board of Supervisors authorizes waiving the hourly wage rates in the living wage ordinance for 2018 for provision of meals for the senior nutrition program by Sacred Heart Hospital and Augusta Health and Rehabilitation if the new program model for the in-house provision of meals staffed by the positions authorized in this resolution is not designed and operational by January 1st, 2018.
Okay, a motion by Supervisor Mortimer of amendment number 1, and that is on your desks. Is there a second to that motion? A second by Carl Anton, Supervisor Anton. So now a discussion on amendment number 1. Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While our newer board member, Supervisor Mortimer, might be well-intentioned, I think he doesn't know the staff quite as well as some of the rest of us, in that I've worked with them for many years. And when they put their mind to something, it'll happen. Plus, you already heard there's a number of resources that they can draw upon and get this up and running, and I have no doubt that it'll happen. So therefore, I don't think this amendment is necessary. Secondly, your second whereas, you point out that it would be comparable, the cost would roughly be comparable to 2017. I want to clarify something that you just said prior to introducing the amendment. You referenced the meal cost at $3.97 and $6.95. That was without administrative costs factored in. If you had factored that in, it would be closer to $9.10 a meal versus the $7.52 at the high end projected, which is all inclusive for the food, the lease, the operational costs, and administrative. So it would not be, I mean, if it's going to be comparable, it's still going to cost us more if we were to stay with the current bidders. So I'm opposed to the amendment just because I don't think it's necessary. With all of the resources that we already have to work with and the department has to work with, it's going to be up and running, and it's going to be a great, new, exciting program. So I'd encourage everybody to not support this. Thank you.
Supervisor Buchanan.
I have a couple of questions, but then comments afterwards, if I may. I know that our main motion before us has been vetted through committee work. Has this amendment at all gone through either the Budget and Finance, ADRC, or any other committee before this come before us?
It is not, but the issue of living wage was discussed when ADRC, as I understand, was considering options.
I would be against this motion in a large part because I think that even though it was generally discussed, I think that the main motion before us is specifically about adding specific staff and taking an item in-house. A previous speaker made some really excellent points about how this could be seen as a subtle critique on our staff or concern where I don't think any concern is warranted. But really, I just think I don't think it's proper that after having a year ago gone and debated a proposal of the living wage ordinance through multiple committees, through this body, to then have an amendment that seeks to touch on the living wage ordinance, kind of tacked on to a separate resolution dealing with how we're doing with hiring a couple of staff members. I think that it would be more proper if this motion were to move forward to have a separate main motion that would actually go to our committees on budget and finance and come before us. And because I really object not just to the substance but the mannerism by which this amendment was brought forward. If I may, I would like to move that we would postpone this amendment indefinitely.
I'm not sure if we can postpone an amendment. I'll look to court counsel because who will look it up because I don't. Well, that's being looked in whether that, I'm not sure. But why don't we continue with some input, Supervisor Dunning. And Supervisor Cronk, I don't see you. Did you hit your request to speak? Okay, but Supervisor Dunning.
I would like to hear from Supervisor Mortimer if he has any specific concerns that would make this necessary other than when we have 6 months or 5.5 months to implement this. Are there specific current concerns that he has in mind that might cause us to miss the December 31st implementation?
Supervisor Mortimer.
Thank you. Just to speak a little bit of explanation, we would hope that this cushion of time isn't necessary, and it could very well be, especially if you have been sitting in on the ADRC meetings. The ADRC is making a lot of progress, but there's a lot of moving parts. And this is just to ensure that because this population that receives Meals on Wheels is a vulnerable, a fragile population, that we want to make sure that the program is done right. Current vendors seem willing to continue just doing what they're doing now at about the same cost rate, so that at least as it was represented last month at the ADRC, I'm assuming still is a possibility. But every day in discussing the new model, there's a lot of moving parts. There's some cost changes, the dollars that we have, some of them are pretty rough guesstimates. We hope that they're good. We might even be able to find even better costs as the program kind of gets laid out and planned. But there's a lot of moving parts, lots of new information, and new programs should never be designed in crisis. You know, our old program ended in June when those bids came back. We didn't have enough bids, and the bids that did come in were too high. And so to design and operationalize the program like this that's brand new, a new model for our county, just might need a little bit of cushion of time. It might need January and February also, in addition, to get it up and running properly, to phase it in, to scale up the meals. to make sure we have the right amount of equipment and that it can even accommodate growth. This amendment only allows more time, if it's needed, by Jennifer and the ADRC to do this program right. And my purpose is, you know, I intend to vote for joining Carl, supporting the staffing. This is important, and we don't want to delay that. But I want to make sure that the ADRC has the latitude and the flexibility so that the program is not designed to, and operationalized too quickly on too short a timeline that forces decisions to be made quickly or prevents the exploring of other options, or, you know, there's best practices we know of in Barron County, and to be able to understand those best practices and apply them here is really important. And again, it's a brand new program. Additional time would be helpful to make sure that we have identified the best location. The location sounds pretty good, but did we really look around and compare costs and look at other lease possibilities? My intention in the amendment is to allow the living wage ordinance to be a success by allowing a cushion of time for the ADRC staff to have more time to plan, and out of sensitivity to the fact that the ADRC department is already operating at 110%, having to design this brand new program over the past month when they're already literally maxed out with the work that they do is a really onerous challenge. And also there's a question of the reserve fund. You know, the reserve fund takes quite a hit. That's our emergency fund that we can prevent seniors from having to pay for meals if funds get short, and then they have to start paying a small portion to help float the program. Also, the question of the Feed My People food bank. That's a great idea, and that's an innovation. We're the first to consider that for a Meals on Wheels program in the whole state of Wisconsin, it's my understanding. Which, you know, that's great to be an innovator like that. I love that idea of Eau Claire County exploring and doing this new model with Feed My People. However, because we're in uncharted territory, we might need a little bit of extra time to figure that piece out. It's a substantial amount of raw food coming from them. We just need to make sure the numbers add up and make sure the program's strong and make sure the living wage is a success. It doesn't mean a delay of 12 months necessarily. It just allows the ADRC a month or 2 or 3 or whatever they need just to get the program up and running properly.
Okay, I'll look to court counsel. Is a motion to postpone indefinitely of an amendment available option?
No, the motion to amend cannot be postponed indefinitely. The main motion, which is the motion on the resolution, could be.
Okay, Supervisor Wilkie.
With all due respect to Supervisor Mortimer, I listened closely to what he had to say, particularly in answer to Supervisor Dunning's question, and I didn't hear any specific problem mentioned other than the mention of there's a lot of moving parts. With respect to Supervisor Mortimer, I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm hearing that the ADRC board, the nutrition committee, and the staff are not, I'm not hearing from them that they have any thought that they need additional time. In fact, they've already indicated that they have some free consultants and are moving on this. We have been told that this concept has been around for some time, so it's not like they're reinventing something brand new, and that this concept they're putting into high gear. I really respect that fact of those bodies, that they're willing to do that they recognize that this board made a policy decision that we were no longer going to facilitate or perpetuate our citizens doing county services for poverty wages. So I don't really want to support this amendment and allow for some backdoor way of moving back to poverty wages. And I think it's been said by a number of supervisors here, and staff that it's not necessary. So I intend to vote no, and I would encourage my colleagues to do the same.
Supervisor Clark.
I would just like to state that I agree with Supervisor Buchanan. We debated the living wage ordinance a long time on this board floor. And we supported it and we passed it in good faith. I would hate for us to take a piece of it and eliminate that living wage ordinance for those employees. I think it behooves us to stick with what we've done. We may not agree with it, but the majority ruled and it passed. And it is up to all of us to make sure that it is successful. Thank you.
Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All due respect to Supervisor Mortimer, I agree with things that the others have said that I don't think it's necessary. But the other important piece of it is it's making an assumption that Sacred Heart and Augusta Health and Rehabilitation would even consider continuing to make meals after December 2017. They specifically did not bid for next year. We have no knowledge, no direct knowledge that they would even consider going beyond December of 2017. So while I think that the amendment was offered in good faith, I agree with the others that it's asking for a change in the living wage ordinance, which is not appropriate with what we're actually doing in the main motion. And secondly, it's being presented based on assumptions, and that's not a good way for us to enact legislation here. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Cronk.
I just wanted to,
Let's see. Is your,
better?
yep.
Okay. I just wanted to say, I think as far as this motion goes, I won't be supporting it, but I do think that it was well intended as sort of a plan B for moving forward with the centralized kitchen. However, I think when you're facing a problem and which direction to go, the first thing that you need to do is strongly decide. And in the ADRC meetings, I saw that very decisive, this is what we want to do, this is the research that we've done, we're ready to do it, and there was confidence that this kitchen would be up and running by December 31st. So I don't feel like, in other cases, yes, I agree that there needs to be a plan B, but this seems like it's very innovative. As far as the original, motion of hiring the kitchen staff goes, I strongly support that because the food will be able to be made from scratch. When we did talk about, or hear the representatives from Barron County, as Supervisor McKinley said, I felt like they were able to also grow their congregate dining, which is really important, especially for this fragile and vulnerable population. It's kind of a second check and balance for them to be seen and making sure that they're okay and having some of that socialization. So it's a win-win for me, and unfortunately I won't support the motion for the Plan B.
Thank you. Supervisor Bates.
Thank you. I think the interesting part about listening to all of this is we realize all of this, that innovation is where we're going to have to be. There's no question that when we look at the uncertainties in our budgets on both the federal and the state level, and the changes that are occurring, that this is exactly the kind of response, a community response, that one would hope would happen. I believe that the notion of not only drawing on the Piedmont people as a resource, but all the other partners, exactly what we would like to see in community solutions. So I will not be supporting the amendment, but I certainly fully support the change in the way the program will be now delivered.
Supervisor Anton.
I recognize that we don't know everything about this. I truly believe that Jennifer is almost certainly going to be highly successful. I support that. But this vulnerable population that we're talking about does need to be protected. And in the event that, let us say, we don't find a chief cook or cook manager that is going to do the job the way we want it done, or something else might occur, it might be helpful to have a backup position for these vulnerable people. And with that in mind, I support the amendment, but I do not in any way want to infer that I think Jennifer is on any kind of slippery slope on this. I think she has her feet firmly on the ground, and innovatively, I think she's to be commended highly for what she has done.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment? Supervisor Mortimer.
Thank you. Just to point out, in our fact sheet for the ADRC handout number 7 for our June meeting, is that at least at that time, Eau Claire and Altoona vendors, Sacred Heart Hospital, stated that they would like to continue providing the meals and would do so if the living wage ordinance was waived. I'm not sure if anything has changed since that feedback was solicited after follow-up on the bids. I haven't heard of anything, but I still think that if the county board deemed it necessary, or if the ADRC found out that the developing the program and hiring, getting people in place, training was taking a little bit longer, that they seem to be willing to continue a little bit longer if needed before they phased out.
Okay, one last request to speak, and then I think we'll be voting. Supervisor Buchanan.
Yes, thank you, and I'll make sure to keep this brief, because it's been brought up a few times about this being a backup, but in order for it to truly be a backup, you would need to resubmit to new bids in order to get one. This motion doesn't clarify or specify when new bids would be sent out, when they would be collected, when the cutoff determination date would be for said bids. That is why I feel very strongly that this amendment should have gone through the proper committee system to have been looked at and been brought forward as its own separate motion, and not have been brought as attached on last minute ad hoc to the main motion of how we hire people. So again, I don't just object to the substance, I also object to how it was brought forward.
Okay, I see no other requests to speak. So before you vote, let me repeat the motion. I will paraphrase it, but it's amendment number 1 that is on your desks, and it amends the resolution that you'll find on page 5 of the addendum, adding 2 additional whereases about possibly needing additional time to make the new model operational, and the impact in terms of the resolution would be adding language that would read, be it further resolved that the Eau Claire County Board of Supervisors authorizes waiving the hourly wage rate and living wage ordinance for 2018 for provision of meals for the senior nutrition program by Sacred Heart Hospital and Augusta Health and Rehabilitation if the new program model for the in-house provision of meals staffed by the positions authorized in this resolution is not designed and operational by January 1, 2018. So that's what we're voting on, not the main motion. So if you are for the option of waiving the living wage ordinance in case it's needed, you would vote yes. If you're opposed to that, vote no. So please vote on amendment number 1 at this time. And that motion is defeated, 3 yes and 20 no. So we're back to the main motion. Other discussion on the main motion. Supervisor Chilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not on the ADRC board, but I do appreciate the facts and figures that were shared tonight. I think there's been enough information disseminated for all of us to make a very informed decision. And it would appear as what we're facing is purely a business decision from an economic standpoint. The bids to me that we've received are obviously extremely higher than what we were paying, so obviously it brings us to a crossroads where you have to make a decision, something has to be done. I think the options that are on the table are a good one. I mean, from a cost standpoint, there's certainly significant savings, so it would appear as though that is the way that we need to move forward. Part of the decision-making process that got us to this point, a lot of questions were asked, and it was in regard to fiscal impact. And even though the question was asked many times, the answers were never given. So just looking at the figures tonight and giving some quick numbers at my desk here, it would appear that the impact on the low side to us as this program, at the low number that was given, is $178,000. On the high number, it would appear that the impact is $277,000. I just offer those numbers because impacts were asked for before and we were never given any. We voted on it, and we all are going to have to move forward with that decision. But I thought I would share those figures that I've come up with here based on what was presented by other people tonight.
Thank you. Any other discussion on file 41? It appears you're ready to vote. So this we're voting on now is file 41 to add 1 FTE kitchen manager position and 2.73 FTE cook positions for the ADRC meal program, Meals on Wheels program. So if you please vote on that now, I'd appreciate it. And that motion is adopted unanimously. Moving on to file 43.
Authorizing public-private partnership agreement.
May I have a motion, please? A motion by Supervisor Henning, second by Supervisor Lavelle, and an explanation by Supervisor Henning. And I know John Johnson from the Highway Shop is here, the Highway Commissioner is here as well.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to John. He's the one that did all the work on this.
Okay.
And he has all the information and.
Okay. Sounds good. Is there...
He's ready to do it. And we should thank him because this is a big benefit to the county.
Thank you very much, and I assume there's no objection. Okay, welcome. Okay.
All right, good evening. What's before you is an agreement that's been reached between a private organization, developer, Quick Trip Incorporated, and the county. It's been an ongoing process. We've been working on, between the state, the city, the county, working on this development for quite a while, and we got to an opportunity where I used some expertise in meeting with the developer where we could work out an agreement at the local level where the developer would donate funds and we could improve our intersection, our county trunk highway and state highway intersection to promote more efficient and safe travel. And that's what's before you tonight is basically Quick Trip's going to fund the project completely. We will bid the project out, manage the project administratively through my department and complete it this fall is the goal. So any questions on that?
Thanks for the explanation.
Yep.
Questions, and then we'll debate. The questions, Supervisor Leary.
Just a general question, what was the vote of the Highway Committee before tonight's meeting?
4 in favor, yep. And 1 absent, so, yep.
So 4-0.
Yep, correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Highway Commissioner John Johnson?
My goal is to get as many funds as I can possibly to help improve our infrastructure from outside sources, so.
Appreciate that.
Great.
Okay, any questions or discussion on this resolution, file 43? I see none, so please take your keypads and vote. The motion is to authorize a public-private partnership agreement concerning highways. That motion is adopted unanimously. Now going back to our main packet, we'll start with file 16.
This ordinance makes changes to the county code in chapters 2.04, 2.05, and 2.06 per requested by the strategic plan process.
May I have a motion, please? Motion by Supervisor Bates, second by Supervisor Chilson, and an explanation by Supervisor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This particular ordinance is actually part of a process. It's an ongoing process to help us keep our county code up to date so that it really does coincide with the state administrative rules, the changes in the statutes, and also sometimes just looking at how we've changed how we do things over the years. So this first particular file, Ordinance 17-18-016, has a great deal to do with the county board and its functions and the way that we do business. You will find there are about 30 different changes in this 30 different sectors that are addressed. Most of these don't have a great deal of significance as far as the function of the board is concerned. They have mostly to do with exactly what I outlined, and that is administrative changes in the way we do business.
Thank you for the explanation. Any questions or discussion on this motion? I see none, so please take your keypads and vote on file 16, amending various sections of Chapter 2 of the County Code. And that motion passes unanimously. File 22.
To amend section 19.01.001 of the Code Authority, to amend section 20.09.006 of the Code, treated impervious surfaces, to amend section 20.15.001 FF of the Code definitions.
Once again, may I have a motion, please? Motion by Supervisor Buchanan, second by Supervisor Dunning. An explanation, Supervisor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, this is strictly, again, the process of updating statutory references and references to Wisconsin Administrative Code, and some corrections in grammar, but there really isn't anything that is of substance in the changes.
Thank you for the explanation. Any questions or discussion? I might just note, well, it's so Keith Zames and his staff kind of went through this with a fine-tooth comb. Administration committee had probably 3 different meetings working on these issues, and Mallory in back here is a law student intern who worked on these as well. And when it affected departments, so highway, sheriff's department, whatever, Keith was in touch to be sure that it worked from with the respective department heads. So thought I'd add that additional background. Any other discussion on file, or discussion at all on file 22? It appears you're ready to vote, so please do so. The motion is to, on file 22, amending various sections of section 19 and 20 of the county code. And that motion is adopted unanimously. File 24.
This ordinance makes changes to the county code and several chapters of Title II Administration per requested by the Strategic Plan Process Review.
A motion, Supervisor Willett, second by Supervisor Leary. And once again, Supervisor Bates, please.
Thank you. Once again, these are changes that are necessary to keep our code current. They deal with a lot of different departments within the county, but it really, again, the meticulous work of corporate counsel and of his intern have certainly helped to bring this up to date. There isn't anything in, if you were just to read the title of this, it tells you how broad every department is actually covered. So a real close look at how we do business. No substantial changes here that I think we need to be concerned about.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion on this matter? And I see none, so please vote on file 24, amending section 2.07 and other sections of chapter 2. And that motion is adopted unanimously. File 29.
This ordinance makes changes to chapter 2.15, 10.02, and 12.34 as part of the strategic plan process.
Once again, looking for a motion. Motion by Supervisor Lavelle, second by Supervisor Chilson, an explanation by Supervisor Bates.
And this is pretty much so the same. Some changes in the Sheriff Department and other of our offices connected with the court system and carrying out the responsibilities of that particular part of county government. Again, the closer look at being sure that our code stays up to date.
Okay. Any questions on this matter? Appears you're ready to vote, so please do so. It's file 29, repealing and recreating chapter 2.15 of the code, and updating a couple other sections. That is adopted unanimously. Moving on to file 28.
Amending the 1982 official zoning district boundary map for the town of Pleasant Valley.
Looking for a motion. I have a motion, please. Supervisor Dunning, with a second by Supervisor Gibson, and an explanation by Supervisor Gibson.
Okay, this rezoning petition is to rezone 27.89 acres from AP Agriculture Preservation District to A3 Agriculture District to divide the existing home and surrounding acreage from the remainder of the applicant's property. This went through planning development, the committee. This fits in with the Eau Claire County's comprehensive plan and also the Town of Pleasant Valley's. Town of Pleasant Valley has supported this, and the planning development committee is also supporting this.
Great. Thank you for the explanation. Any questions for Supervisor Gibson or any discussion on this matter? I see none, so please vote. It's file 28. The motion is to amend the 1982 official zoning district boundary map for the town of Pleasant Valley as described. And that's adopted unanimously. File 37.
Supporting an increase in payment in lieu of taxes for county forest lands.
I have a motion, please. Motion by Supervisor Willett, with a second by Supervisor Schroffnagel, and an explanation by Supervisor Lavelle.
Well, this has been turned down by the state once before. It'll probably be turned down again. It's been 28 years since they increased it, and the cost of repairing roads and other necessities the townships need have gone up dramatically. I think Bayfield County went high again to see if they could get anything. And another thing, the forestry mill tax isn't in the budget for next year either, so there's some more money lost. I don't know where they're going to pick that up either for services such as DNR, firefighting and things in the forest up north. So right now, Director Peterson said, well, maybe we would go put in for it, go along with it, send it off, because someday we might need Bayfield County to help us on something. So that's why we took it back to committee, we voted to send it. Whether we get anything, the state does, you know, if we get anything, it's better than what they got.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Supervisor Lavelle or discussion? Supervisor Stelgis.
Yeah, I'd just like to add a few more comments. This, you know, when we have county forest land, the, you know, the local municipalities don't get tax revenue on that. So this payment in lieu of taxes is something that the state provides to the local municipalities to try to supplement their loss in real estate tax revenue. And so I think we want to encourage townships to welcome the fact that there would be public property within their township. And so in order to do that, we fairly need to be compensating them for their loss of revenue to that degree. So I see this as good to support, and I think it's important that we encourage townships to welcome the opportunity to have public properties within their boundaries. So I would ask for your support on this. Oh, and one other thing, I think Supervisor Lavelle mentioned the mill tax, which it would appear in the upcoming budget may disappear. And so the funds for this program did come from that mill tax. So if the proposed budget process ultimately passes, then all forestry programs, including the funding for our forester and others, will have to be funded out of general purpose revenue rather than a dedicated fund. Doesn't mean the funds will go away, but they will have to come from general purpose funds now.
Thank you very much. Any Supervisor Clark?
Thank you. I just have a question. What is the pay in lieu of taxes for state or national forests?
Supervisor Lavelle, do you know the answer to that
For the
question?
state forest?
For state forest or national forest?
I think the state pays $10 an acre for state forest.
Okay.
And what was the other question?
Like national?
National forest, $2.
Oh.
So federal forest is $2 an acre. So this would bring it up to what the feds pay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? I see none, so please vote on file 37. The motion is to support an increase in the payment in lieu of taxes PILT for county forest lands. That is adopted unanimously. File 40.
Authorizing payment of vouchers over $10,000 issued during the month of June 2017.
May I have a motion, please? Motion by Supervisor Buchanan with a second by Supervisor Miller. Thank you, volunteers. I appreciate it. You'll find that on pages 79 to 80 of your meeting packet. Any questions on the vouchers this month? Supervisor Buchanan.
Not a question so much as a statement. I noticed that on one of our vendors lists is the $3.5 million for the Eau Claire Confluence Foundation, and I just didn't want to let that go without making a quick comment. I know that for a long time we've had these battles in our community about need to have versus nice to have when it comes to government services. That yes, we have a police department and that's a need to have project, but other things like parks and bike trails are nice to haves that we can't really usually afford, and we should cut taxes. And I know that Eau Claire is never a community that will be as cheap of a tax base to locate your business as somewhere like Mississippi, Alabama, or Georgia. And so we should never try to compete in a race to the bottom on those types of costs for low-wage jobs. And I like that we're a community that's moving forward, that sees the value in these projects, that it may cost a little bit, but when you look at places like Janf, they would have never located in our community if we were looking at just the lowest place that has the lowest cost to do business. That these projects are economic engines in our community, that even though we're making this expense, that it's not an expense, it's a long-term investment that will pay dividends, that we make more off of this than we spend. And so I just did not want to have this vendor pass without making that comment, and I will be wholeheartedly supporting this.
Okay, I don't want to get into a debate on the Confluence project. I don't think it's in order, to be honest. I understand why you want to make the point. We have these vouchers here. Are there questions about them or something that we can't do? But I don't want to get into should we be funding the Confluence or not. Supervisor Lavelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On 42, item 42 there, WRRs on that clean sweep program. For as many vehicles out there and along the lines are, that's pretty good bang for the buck for $15,000. Do they collect money there for other things, or is it just?
It's on page 79 of the meeting packet, line 42. I think that's what you referenced, correct?
Right, WRR.
It's the expenditure to WRR.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, if you look at it, I mean, that's quite a bang for the buck. Do they collect money for stuff, things out there too, or is it just?
Okay.
Or just?
Jen, or okay, yep.
They actually do collect some monies, and what I will ask is, I know that they typically put together a report of all of the types of materials that they have brought in. I will ask for that report and we'll get it to the board.
No, but when you look at
Along
the
with
cost,
the revenue that they brought in.
The revenue and just the
Right.
full report on exactly how much they took in, they report on all of that, so we'll get that to you.
when you look at the cost and the many people that go to it, you know, it's a great deal.
It is.
It's a pretty good bang for the buck for $15,000, so.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion on the vouchers? Okay, so please vote on file 40, authorizing payment of vouchers over $10,000 issued during the month of June. And that's adopted unanimously, and our last item of business is appointments.
Citizen appointment to Land Information Council of Shanna Harmonson, the City of Eau Claire representative.
I have a motion, please, for that. Supervisor Chilson, second by Supervisor Crock. Any discussion on that appointment? If you'd please vote on that appointment to Shanna Harmson to the Land Information Council. Supervisor Pagonis and Anton and Willett, if you'd vote there, thank you all very much. That's adopted unanimously. We are at the end of our agenda. Thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and Eau Claire County. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.